work.
Yeah,
I have 2 businesses and I have a full-time job. I'm not going to be able to do it all summer. So you know what? I'm going to pay for that because I know if I don't do that, he's going to fall behind.
100%.
So I'd rather pay the $150 a week, $140, sorry, a week to help him. So when he goes into 4th grade, he's not behind, than for me to let him go into 4th grade and be mad at the teacher because she's not doing her job.
You want to hear something?
You know?
And I do say this a lot, and a lot of people get offended when you have this conversation. I genuinely believe that blacks in America, if they thought like more foreign blacks, they do better in America. I'll be honest with you, if more blacks in America thought like more foreign blacks in America, they would do better in America. Because the reason why I say that, and I'm not going to say all of us, so guys, don't take it like I'm calling everybody out. But the one thing I do see culturally, a lot of people have something called a high sense of entitlement. A lot of them have, they're still waiting for the 40 acres and a mule that's never going to come. I'm being honest. They still looking for and still blaming people when they have the opportunity of changing things and they just don't see it. Like, for instance, I grew up in a town where it was a lot of Haitians, a lot.
They don't play.
And the thing, they're very high on academics.
Oh, yeah, they don't
very
play.
High on
Education is a big thing.
Mandatory. And they still believe heavy in marriage. They still believe in marriage, right? But watch this. So the one thing I would see, a lot of those Haitian guys, I learned some Creole from living there. It's called Kunzi bis. They say, oh, Papa Kunzi bis, that means your father drives a bus. A lot of them fathers drove buses, Ubers, taxis. These are the initial, the 80s and 90s fathers. They drove buses, cabs, all of these things, and they still put their kids in private schools. Because their priority was the future of what their children was gonna be. But I do see now more people are too busy trying to still live and not live for their to set up their children. They still want to have fun. They still want to turn up. I see people who go into a spring break and go into Carnival who 50 years old. I'm like, you at Carnival 50, 60 years old, you still at Carnival. And I'm saying, you're 40 years old, 30 years old, your kid, they got every Jordan, but they don't have every good grade. And I'm like, but that's a problem within itself. But if you call them out, you know what happens? They get mad as hell. They get mad like, oh, you disrespectful. Oh, you trying to disrespect black people. And I'm like, see, the problem is, y'all gotta stop with this black Caribbean. Black is black. The only thing that separates black people is the mentality. I know African Americans who have great mentalities. I know Jamaicans who have great mentalities. I know Haitians who have great mentalities. I know Haitians who have bad mentalities. I know Jamaicans who have bad mentalities. And I know African Americans who have bad mentalities. But the problem is we have to identify that everyone is not the same psychologically and mentally. Right. And the understanding that your children become your number one priority when you have children. I know people who have mad kids and still depending on the system to take care of their kids. They still depend on it, whether male or female. I had a guy the other day that told me, he said he don't need to take care of his kid because his baby mother's on Section 8.
I do think priorities are skewed, though. I agree, but I agree with you when you say the priority is different. I think that you have a culture now where you said they focus more on what's on their kids' bodies versus what's in their head. You know, that's what's important to some people. I'm not going to say all. I've seen people where it's like, you know, they need to have the most lavish birthdays. They need to have the most lavish proms. They need to have the most lavish first day of school outfit. Everything needs to be lit, but it's like, okay, but if your kid is falling behind, what are we going to do about that? Well, how are we going to help them? For me, I'll sacrifice, and I like to, you know, put myself together, put my kids together. But as I did it with my first son, and I remember I told you this, me and my husband had this conversation where he was like, yo, every time he wants something, you buy it for him. That was my only child at the time. I felt like, of course, like I got it. He once said I'm gonna buy it. But my son used to have this, he never had this real hissy fits. It was like in the store, he would just get mad, like, why not? But why not? And I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, why not?
Spoiled.
He needs, you know, it's my only child. I didn't care. And his thing was, it's not about whether the toy costs $1 or $100. It's about him feeling like every time he steps in the store, he should get something. And we need to break that habit.
100%.
And me and him used to argue all the time. Like, why are you making such a big deal? It's only $5. I don't care. Doesn't care. I don't care how it is. Once I started saying no, he would be like,
you get attitude.
My son. But now that he's almost 13, he's so used to it that he's just like, okay.
It is what it is.
It is. And then my second one, it's crazy because he wasn't raised like that at all. Oh, it doesn't even faze him when you say no. Yeah. Mom, can I get that $15 game? No. Okay.
Done.
It's not even a discussion. No, but you know what I'm saying? So
if you look at the logic though, right, you see most black people, we grew up a lot poverty. And a lot of us grew up in poverty. So a lot of us believe in giving the children the items that we never had, but they don't believe in teaching them the things that they didn't learn.
Yeah.
So now you're missing a whole piece. Okay, the kid is fly, the kid looks good, So you're giving them the look, right, that you never had. And that could be a trauma within yourself, like you didn't have the latest Jordans, you didn't dress nice, so guess what, I refuse to let my kid have to go through that. I get it. But the reality is those struggles are what created your character and molded you to the person you are, right? Especially when you had to earn those things. But when a child becomes, or he's always or she's always receiving, what happens is they become very entitled. And that's when now someone has to date this entitled child or keep the same standards that mommy and daddy taught them they're deserving of, even if they didn't work for it. They didn't even work for these things, and you feel like you're supposed to have these things?
Right.
And that's horrible parenting within itself.
But on the flip side, do you think, though, back in our days, things were also so much cheaper? We didn't want of certain things like now. Back in our days, they didn't have the PS5s and the games that were $70 and the controllers that were $200. So now when your kid does come to you and wants something, it's going to be expensive. Like, you know, it's not like when we went to our mom, like, I want this Barbie doll, and it was $20. Now, nobody's playing with Barbie. The bikes now, I mean, my mother bought my son a bike 2 Christmases ago. It was a $1,200 bike, and I thought that was crazy.
With the big wheels?
The big, it wasn't an electric bike, a regular pedal one, but and so I said,
that, a Willy bike, right?
Why would you do that? But for her, that's the one he wanted. Blah 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 blah. $1,200 for a bike. Like, is that real life? Like, you know, if I would have asked my mother for a $1,200 bike when I was 10, she would have looked at me like I was crazy. But
100%.
is this the price? Is this what bikes cost now? Like, we're getting $1,200 bikes for 10, 11, 12-year-olds. Like, it's a different time.
So,
like, it's just a different time.
In that scenario, who's the problem? Because again, if they don't have it, they become more insecure. Because you can mask insecurity by putting physical things on the insecurity to make it feel better than what it actually is. So again, it's fake. It's like Halloween. A lot of us put on costumes, and our children learn how to put on the same costumes that we've learned how to put on. A lot of us have learned how to hide poverty by looking like we're rich. And then what happens is your children get older, they learn how to hide poverty by looking like they're rich. And it becomes a pattern all over again, where your child will drive a BMW, have every check engine light on it if the car there is, but guess what? It's still a BMW. I know kids right now, one of the kids said to me, they asked him, yo, would you rather a 2020 car or would you rather a 2010 car? But the 10 car was a BMW, the 2020 was a Honda. He said, I'd rather the BMW. He didn't care that the BMW was a hoopty. He cared that the aura it would give off because he's driving allegedly a BMW. And I've said, you see the mentality? But when you teach, see, once someone said Hondas will last longer. But again, he had to be taught that it's not about what you drive. A car gets you from point A to point B. He's not taught that. He's taught like you got to look like the man or the woman in this expensive car. But in reality, it's not.
Someone said before, she no longer gives her child, she teaches them financial literacy. Do you think that is something that we lack a lot now, is teaching our children financial literacy and the value of a dollar as opposed to just spending the dollar? Yeah,
because we sit back and we think that the children is going to get it. The reality is you have to raise a child up in it. So while you're raising your child with this mentality, they will gravitate towards that mentality because they've always been taught it. You can't wait till a kid is 18, 19, 16, 17, never taught them financial literacy, never took them shopping and showed them how to shop. I used to send my son to the food store. He used to buy the most expensive stuff because he didn't know any better, but then I used to get mad at him. But in reality, I said that was my fault because I should have showed him and taught him how to shop. So again, we have to look at it. We're raising the humans are the adults of tomorrow. And while we're raising the adults of tomorrow, we got to teach the children of today how to be the adults of tomorrow. So we have to procreate that mentality as they're learning, how to make up their own bed, how to advocate for themselves, how to speak up, these things really matter. You have people that are 30, 40, 50 years old, they're scared to death to even speak up for themselves. You ever see some people, they walk in the room, they're like this, mad timid? I'm like, because no one ever let that person speak up for themselves. Now, as an adult, that person still can't speak up for themselves. Right? Go ahead, Tyler.
I also think our culture, we have to do better with working on ourselves internally. Like, there's been times I tell people, yo, I'm about to meditate. They laughing at me. And it's like, I'm growing internally and you guys aren't. I feel like black culture is very like, this is who I am and that's that. I'm gonna be this for the rest of my life. Nobody's changing me, and it's weird for me to do different things out the box to help me grow and elevate. We're so set and stuck in our ways, we don't really want to do the internal work to help us be better.
So we do have to answer that question, but where they said we haven't answered the question, what is black culture? So we're going to answer that. But to add to what Q said, I do agree with you where a lot of these school districts, the parents show up. I think if we showed up a lot more for our children, we would get what we want. If we advocated as much for our schools and the budgets and passing certain things like we do in certain districts where they're not getting it, Roosevelt, Wyandanch, Hempstead, Uniondale, we have to show up. I feel like we won. Yes, right? I feel like we won a lot, but we're not doing anything to really incorporate that change. So it's like you're just fighting a dead battle. You know what I mean? Like we have to show up. We have to show up in our schools. We have to show up for this meeting. I do live in a predominantly white neighborhood, and at these budget meetings, these parents are showing up. They're there. They're showing up. They want to know what's happening. They want to know what budgets need to be passed. They want to know what they need to do. I think for us as a community, for Black people, I could speak from that, is we don't show up as much and we expect this change to just happen. They're cutting our school budgets. They're taking away a lot of things because we're not there fighting for it. So it's like you get what you get and you don't get upset. You know what I'm saying? So
we gotta definitely we gotta up our standards as far as, you know, how we parent and then holding each other accountable. Yeah. Like that's the one thing I do see. Like the one thing my first job outside of the barbershop, I used to work in a Jewish synagogue. I worked at a Jewish, that's how I learned how to save money. I used to work at,
you used to work at a synagogue?
For years.
Doing what?
I used to run the head custodian there.
Oh.
So from the time I was like 16, 17, I started there. So I learned the Baruch Atah Adonai, I learned all of that. I'm a language guy. I learn language when I'm around it. Okay. I'm gonna pick it up because I joke about it and then I start saying it. I know the Shalom Aleichem, I know all of that.
All right, we gotta fact check you because we don't know what you're saying.
But those are real words. My mentor is Jewish also.
But question, they want to know, what do you think is Black culture? What does Black culture mean to you?
I think Black culture has to have standards. I think culture is what you believe. Culture is how you conduct yourself. Culture is accomplishments. Those are the things that make a culture so strong. This is why you can see a Nigerian kid and a Black American kid, and this kid that you laughing at who may have a different tongue when he speaks English. He knows who he is because he has a culture. There's a lot of people that don't know who their culture is. So when you see Black culture is a big pot. Everything you've seen in a Black culture from Africa, Haiti, Jamaica, that's all our culture.
Right.
And a lot of us feel like because we're not born where they're born, they don't understand Black is Black.
Right.
Anything that happened with Black people is what happened to you. So for instance, I celebrate 1804. 1804 is the day that Haitians got their independence. I'm not Haitian. But that was the first Black place to get their independence. And I represent them every time. I eat my soup jumu with them because this is a major accomplishment for Black culture. But again, we ignore it because I ain't Haitian. Like, yo, Haiti is a place. You're Black, right? Jamaica is a place, but you're Black. Let's get beyond that weird stuff. That's the issue within itself. When you having conversations with a person that's not intellectual, they can't see themselves. I'm looking dead at a Haitian, you look just like me.